Welcome to another episode of Dad's Nerdy Ambitions. I'm your host, Steve Pugh. With me always is Joe. Joe, how you doing today?
Shut up, Bev.
Was that your witty?
Yeah,
that was your
witty
line.
That was the
from the
best
movie?
line from the show. From both episodes that are released right now, the best line is "Shut up, Bev."
All right. Well, before we get into the whole tangent of your negativity, let's bring in, because we have a special co-host with us today, Lily. How are you doing today, Lily?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. Are you going to be as negative as my brother?
No.
Yes. Listen, okay. Just before we get into this, I just want to break down the 3 levels of knowledge and I guess attitude coming into this. So I would say me being the lowest of almost. I mean, I forgot that Scarlet Witch was even in the. I didn't know who Wanda. At first, when you told me, "Hey, let's do WandaVision," I thought, "Oh, that's going to be a show about wands or magic people or something like that." I don't know. And then you're like, "No, it's Wanda and Vision." Okay, who's that? And then you're like, "Oh, Scarlet Witch and Vision." And I'm like, "Oh, right, the Avenger guys." So I'm coming in with next to no information. Well, before I watched the show, next to no information. Lily, what? Moderate, you know?
Yeah, I saw the superhero movies and have never read the comics.
But you came in knowing who Scarlet Witch was. And
ish.
Wanda is who I knew. By name, Wanda. Period.
Okay, so first off, who gave Joey all the coffee? And because he's going on a tangent here.
I've got a lot to say about this show.
I see that. I see that.
And of course, you knowing the most about this. But attitude-wise, boy, I'm just awfully muffed and miffed about this show. You know, it got my gosh darn goat. You know.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how much did you enjoy the show?
Hold that answer. Hold that answer. So before we go on to the tangent that is you, because I feel like you're about one conspiracy theory away from wearing a tinfoil hat. Oh yeah, most
definitely. I think I've like gone beyond that.
His hat's under the table, waiting.
I believe it. So this episode is spoilers. If anybody hasn't figured it out, we're going to be talking about WandaVision. I will say this: if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, I would immediately pause listening to this podcast and go watch the episodes, or just wait to listen to this one until you have. We're going to be discussing a lot of things. Most of the stuff on my side is going to be hypothetical theories and ideas. We only have, because the episodes were like, what, 30 minutes plus credits and everything.
Yeah,
so we have an hour's worth of show, 2 episodes, and it's mostly theories on this side because we're so new into it with the show and how the MCU works. So yeah, here's your heads up about what we're going to be discussing and how we're going to be discussing it. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to our fans in Ireland, because we have not done that yet, and I think they were officially our largest and first large international following back in the first Mandalorian episode, and they've stayed with us.
Yeah, truly appreciate it. I mean, you make up such a large portion of our listeners. I don't know what happened, but after the first Mando episode, you just like looked at our analytics and then just a huge spike out of nowhere in Ireland, and you guys have just been keeping it up and killing it ever since.
Yeah, thank you so much, and definitely let us know if there's anything we can do or you want to hear about from the Emerald Isle. Also, going to give a shout out to New Zealand, which is our 3rd biggest, and we have somebody in Argentina listen to us now.
We have a couple like random listeners
Norway?
throughout, and well, actually, Norway's. I mean, it's not just one. We get pretty decent in Norway, but yeah, I mean, truly, I mean, to everybody who listens, obviously, we can't thank you enough.
Yes, absolutely.
Insane Ireland. What do you guys? I mean, keep it up, man.
I love it. Okay, so let's kind of go. There are, I would say, now there are two separate types of Scarlet Witch and Vision. Before the merger between Fox and Disney, there was three, which is why we had that whole the two episodes. We had the Age of Ultron episode, our movie, and we had the X-Men, where they brought in Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch was a baby. And then in the Ultron one, they had Quicksilver get killed off because, Fox, because you had that whole, they had X-Men and the Avengers both had, I don't want to say rights, but they had connections with both Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, and they had to make that. And then you have the comic side. As we look now in this, we're starting to see all those mergers come into play, and you're getting this show that I think is trying to accept all three sides, as well as everything else that goes into the Marvel Universe utilizing the multiverse system. I think that's a pretty safe bet, especially with a Doctor Strange movie coming out called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse.
Which we'll get into later, but did you notice the Easter egg in episode 2?
I might have missed that one. Yeah. I might have missed it. There's a ton of Easter eggs in these 2 30-minute shows. Which, how many times did you watch it?
I've only watched it once. I did not stop and go back and stop and play to check everything out. I mean, I picked up what I picked up, but after doing endless hours of research and copious note taking, and I found a ton of them. I mean, other people found a ton of them, and then I learned from these people.
So people did the work.
Oh, most definitely.
I just pulled their research and said, "This is mine now."
I actually found a document online and then just copy and pasted it. But I wanted to impress all of you with all my knowledge.
Okay. So let's go on our thoughts of how you felt the first 2 episodes were. So I'll start with Joey, because no, I take this back. I take that back. We'll start with Lily. So you are a fan of Avengers. You're a fan of the Marvel Universe. So you have a concept of it to an extent, at least from the cinematography side, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on the first 2 episodes? How did you feel they went? And then based on the information you've seen, how do you feel it is going to go?
When we first watched the first episode, I was like, I don't want to watch the second episode because it was boring to me because I didn't pick up on all of the clues. And then there was one part at the end where it seemed to start getting interesting because it seemed like she was understanding what was reality and what wasn't. Wanda was. And then we watched the next episode the next day, and that one seemed a lot better. It was faster and there were more things going on. And then when Joe came into our room at 1 a.m. with all this information, it started sounding a little more interesting because we understood more of what was going on. But right off the bat, it was just I didn't really like it at first because it was kind of boring and I just didn't understand what was going on.
That's interesting. Did Joe come in with in my head, I'm imagining that scene from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they have all these strings up and the conspiracy theory look going on. I'm assuming that's what Joe looked like.
Turned the lights on, gave me pamphlets, got my tinfoil hat ready to go. It was
I
good.
Believe it. So, all right. So Joe, since you have a whole tangent you want to go on, before you go on your tangent, I'll do my side.
Okay.
Because I feel you have a lot. I liked it. But I came in with the knowledge, knowing that I've read some of the comics. I'm not a huge Scarlet Witch. I'm not a huge Vision person. I don't follow their comics, and I've read them in the Avengers, and I've followed some of the X-Men ones. I've read House of M, so I have some knowledge of that, and I could see some of those things in it. I'm a big Marvel nerd, so I enjoy the movies. I took that knowledge, knowing what I was possibly going to get myself into with the whole multiverse system. I liked it. I think it is a a little harder for somebody who is not a hardcore fan or doesn't have those. Like, this is definitely at least the first 2 episodes were set up for the fans by the fans, and that's how I felt about it. Because there's a ton of Easter eggs that I caught a bunch of stuff. I was sending Joe notes or text messages throughout when I was watching the episode of various things that I had caught, and I knew were going to be crucial things. Some of them turned out to be true. Some of them I still haven't figured out. Maybe, Joe, you have. But I liked it. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's going to go as the show goes on. All the stuff you saw in the previous episodes are going to make sense. You're going to go, oh, that's what this meant. Oh, this is what this. And I think what it also has the potential of is after the season has ended and we're getting into the movies, because this is going to set up for the multiverse movie. This is going to set up for Spider-Man. You're going to go back and you're going to want to rewatch this show and you're going to see a lot more stuff. And I think you'll appreciate the show more for its value than you would, say, like with The Mandalorian when it came out. You knew what you were kind of getting. You were getting that kind of Western style, cowboy, Mandalorian. And you got Baby Yoda, you got Grogu. So different style, and I appreciate that they didn't make it just like that, and I appreciate that they thought outside the box when it came to doing the cookie cutter Marvel, superhero movie style. That's my opinion, anyways. Joe?
Yeah. So first time actually watching it through. Well, I guess I've only watched it through once, but before doing all this research, hated it. Absolutely thought it was unwatchable. Only because this is my problem, is that the first 2 episodes are, like you said, they're made for the fans.
Now, just let me stop you there. How much superhero knowledge do you really truly have?
Next to nothing. I've seen, all the different Spider-Mans, obviously. I've seen a large amount of the cinema, like the Marvel cinema, whatever it is, the MCU. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a large amount of them. Those don't go nearly into as much detail as you truly need to understand at least the first episode. Because I will say, this is a series coming off one of the, most valuable, most watched movies, the Avengers series. This is coming directly off of this. It has some references to it and stuff like that. This, which is a movie series that I'm sure there are a lot of smaller things, especially for true fans, like hardcore fans. But for the most part, it panders to the masses. It is a series that you can just jump into and, okay, I get 90% of what's going on here. This show, at least the first episode, you truly have to know what's going on. Otherwise, it is just an old 50s show. I mean, it's literally just a, remake of I Love Lucy or Leave It to Beaver or something like that. Which, of course, is what it is intended to, because that's what Wanda's ideal version of a perfect American life is.
Let me ask you this, though, before you keep on going. It does do, like I said, it does not fill into this cookie cutter idea that we have for superhero stuff. Isn't that something that, not even as a fan, but as a person who you have your protagonist, and he's got to fight the antagonist. He's got his thing, or I put it this way: how many different origin stories do you need for Spider-Man?
Oh,
how many of those have come out?
I'm not.
There's a ton of those,
right? I'm not suggesting that this has to be a stereotypical origin story. I'm saying unless you truly understand Wanda's backstory, this show, at least episode 1 and most of episode 2, are not going to make sense for a show that's put on a platform, Disney Plus, that is marketed to the masses, that aren't going to have this kind of information going into.
So I'm not trying to get it as an origin story, but you've had so many origin stories for Batman in the DC universe, or you've had so many everybody has an origin story movie and stuff or something.
Spider-Man has more than any.
Yeah. So we know that Martha's been killed a billion times. We know that Uncle Ben's going to die. But instead of doing an origin story, instead of following even like Iron Man 2 or, Thor's movies, or Guardians of Galaxies, even we look at these movies, we know what they're bringing to the table. They flipped the table on us. They brought us something that we're adjusted to a 1950s show. Mm-hmm. They literally showed us this is what they were going to do. And we're still waiting for that. Well, where's the superhero side? What's going on? And we got niblets in the first episode. And then the second episode, they brought in more. You saw certain things. And we'll get into those in just a second. But like I said, it did something different. Don't you want different?
Right. Well, I will say it's not just a 50 show if you know what you're looking at. Because now that like I've done all this research, episode 1 is a completely different episode to me. Like before, it truly was just a knockoff I Love Lucy or Bewitched or whatever. Yeah. Yep. That's truly all it was the first time I went through with next to no knowledge. But if you with all this research done, it is both episode 1 and 2 are completely different episodes now. I will say, yes, I'm not saying every show has to do it where they pander to the masses. I think it's great. You want to make something special for the true fans. That's great. But you can also do it a perfect example, The Witcher. A lot of people didn't understand a lot of the stuff going on in the Witcher series, but it didn't take away from the overall show. I will say I have high hopes for the series. I think it's heading in a good direction. Episode 2 was significantly better coming from the perspective of not knowing anything. It's the only part of episode 1 that I truly enjoyed watching it for the first time was the stop it. Where
oh my god,
I can't remember the name of the actress, but the woman who plays Kitty
from that 70s show.
Yes, where she's going stop it. That point, that was the turning point for me, which unfortunately was the last,
but it was that hooker.
It ended great, and which was the reason why I was like, okay, now I kind of want to watch episode 2, because up to that point I was like, I'm probably not going to watch episode 2.
What if this is Marvel's attempts? What if this is Disney's attempt to help the masses associate and have more relatability to the true fans? Like they're showing all the Easter eggs,
but then they're not going to pick that up. I mean,
no, you won't pick that up now, but it's getting you to well, why would this helicopter be in this scene? Why was this red and yellow? Mm-hmm. Why did it have the 57 on it? Mm-hmm. And, technology's out there. This is why our podcast exists, so we can educate the masses too. I don't know the words I want to say right now.
I will say before I keep ragging on the show, I do have very high hopes for it.
I think it's going to bring it to it.
Yeah, I like the way it progressed into episode 2. It was a little slow for me in episode 2, but it had a lot more meat to it, at least from somebody in my position or Lily's position where we could understand a little bit better. I think as long as they keep going in this direction and revealing a little bit more, then I think it'll be great. I will say also, from a cinematic side, there were some little things like the aspect ratio that I picked up on that I liked a lot, since it was just, in these older, it's supposed to replicate these older shows. It was in that 4:3 aspect ratio, like how the screen was when they were doing Wanda's, reality, and then it switched back to the 16:9 or something like that when they went out at the end of the episode, when they went into the real world. Little things like that. It doesn't really affect the show overall, but as somebody who's a big fan of cinema and blah 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 blah, I really like those little things about that. But overall, I have high hopes for the show.
Okay. All right. Cool. So, all right, let's go ahead and kind of talk about the first episode, since this is the first episode of the very first live action Marvel show done by Disney. I think it might actually be the first live action Marvel show since the old ones, or I'm talking back the old Hulk and Thor and way back in the 70s and everything.
Yeah.
Well, I think Hulk was in the 80s. Bruce Banner's one. think maybe.
All we know is that Lou Ferrigno was the best Hulk.
So, at least this is Disney's first. What were your thoughts? Let's talk about episode 1. So it starts off. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, should you explain for anybody who doesn't know? I guess explain what Wanda's powers are and why it's set in 50s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go starting there. So Wanda's real name is Wanda Maximoff. She has now. This is where it starts to get to that split fuzzy zone. When they were still owned by Fox, she is a mutant. In the Age of Ultron, in the Disney verse, she was genetically engineered, I believe, and in the comics, she is a mutant. She was a mutant, and she was trained. She was also trained by a witch, and so she gained a lot of powers there too. In the comics, her dad is, or at least in some of the multiverses, her dad is Magneto. In the movies, we are in the WandaVision and the Disney side, we don't know. And I don't think we learned in the Fox side. Did you see anything about that? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been... Yeah. But it's to for the longest time, because Wanda has been in the Disney movies. She was in Age of Ultron. She was in Civil War. She was in both of the Endgame and Infinity Gauntlet. So she was only in 4 movies, probably for a grand total of, we'll say, 25 minutes, right? Which is not a lot of time. So you didn't really get to see her potentiality or her powers. But even then, what we did get to see, they nerfed it down a lot. So that's another reason I got excited about WandaVision, is because they have the potential to show her true powers where she makes her own reality. In the comics, she is the most powerful, one of the most powerful mutants, bar none. She can manipulate and distort reality on a whim, and with all her training and her hexcraft is what it's called, and she remakes the universe multiple times. Like, she gets upset about something and goes, you know what, I don't like this, I want to remake our universe, and does this, which is where the House of M comics came into play, where she tried to make a mutant paradise. It ends up unfortunately falling through. There's no happy ending, and she gets so mad and just says, no more mutants, and that's it. No more. They're done. So it's like, wow, you're really, really, really powerful. And of course, you have to go, okay, how do you make this a feasible person to fight as a villain? And how do you make it not an overpowered superhero? And I think they did a good job as much as they possibly could. It's like Ultron in Age of Ultron. Ultron was a way more OP than he is in the movies. That's kind of her background. She grew up, depending on which area, you're when you grab into her comics, and they've obviously redone them. She would have been a child. Times. Yes. She would have been a child around the time that I Love Lucy and Bewitched would have come out. And so these would have been nostalgic shows for her to watch. Thinking as a kid, shows I used to watch would have been like Beetlejuice and oh my god, I can't even think of shows I used to watch just like Saturday morning cartoons. So it was like Beetlejuice and Ghostbusters and Looney Tunes and stuff like that. So actually, it would have been like Boy Meets World for us and everything. This would have been our show that we watched ABC. And so those were her magical moments. And if you're going off of what happened to her based on the MCU, her brother has died fighting for a bad guy, and then his last move is to be a good guy, is to take a bunch of bullets for was it Hawkeye, I think, in Ultron. And so her brother's dead, and the first person that showed her any affection is basically a robot with the mind gem or mind stone in his head. Spoilers, he gets killed too. He literally gets his head crushed in the Infinity Gauntlet at the end. He pulls the stone right out of him and just that was savage. Which is actually kind of a funny, the line where she's saying like
my husband and his indestructible head. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, right in the feels right there. Everything that's happened to her has been just like, oh yeah, and she almost destroyed a town using her powers and everything, or an entire city. And that's why the whole Civil War thing came into play, is like, hey, maybe we should have superheroes like major monitored and everything. And she's like, yeah, it's my fault. That's great. Awesome. So it's not a lot of good has happened to her. Oh yeah. Also, she was, contained in a small cell for her almost entire life. She's had a really crappy one. Like, I would put it like H.P. Lovecraft than, Wanda Maximoff.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe give Wanda a little bit more credit.
A little more? All right. But no, she really has had it really bad. And so all of a sudden we're thrown into this episode where it's the 1950s, and it is definitely Bewitched, I Love Lucy. She's talking that style.
Yeah, I think the first episode is set in the 50s, so I'm pretty sure it's heavily modeled after Leave It to Beaver, the first episode.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yes.
And then I think the second episode goes really into Bewitched, because are they moving up a decade? Like they're in the 60s?
They haven't yet.
Not yet, okay.
Not yet, no. But it's give them time. I think the third, because we'll get to that. So it does. It starts off. They don't even like segue you into it or give you kind of this motion into it. They just full blown. Hey, this is how the show is. This is what, and you're caught off guard from the beginning. And I think that's what really attracts me to the show is. It's completely, you're like, wait, this isn't superheroes, this isn't Marvel, this isn't our Avengers. What's going on here? You start to see them like they're doing their magic, and he's transforming through things, going through things, and they're going to work, and it's just like a normal everyday thing. If you're not paying attention, if you're just watching the show like it is a regular show,
it's very at the beginning. Vision's very comedy of errors, Dick Van Dyke kind of vibes and stuff like that. Yeah.
So. Things I noticed right off in the beginning of it is he doesn't know what he does.
Yes.
At his work. And I was like, that's a key moment right there.
Well
after
I will say I mean there might be I guess two things, at least what I noticed on that. One, I think it's just like a reference to these old 50s shows, these, or any sitcom rather, where the character isn't any deeper than it needs to be on that episode. So you never find out what the husbands do in the show. You never see where they go. What was it? Not Smallville. God, I can't remember the name of the show, but Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon. What is the show? I can't remember what the show is. Pleasantville. In Pleasantville, they get pulled into a 50 show, and nobody in the show knows. Like, it doesn't. Nothing exists other than what's in the show. So I think that was like a reference to all these 50s or sitcom shows where if it's not on screen, it doesn't exist, and the characters only know what's going on. In addition to Vision, I mean, like this is a made up reality created by Wanda. So he's like questioning this reality, like what's going on, like what is happening.
I'm going to give you a third option here. So this is going into part of my theory. I think she was looking for something in a specific place, and I think it has to be associated with Hart in his business. That she was on a mission to find some type of intel to figure out what was going on. Like they had a cover business, and her job was to figure out what they did there.
Interesting. Okay.
See, yeah. So I mean, I could be completely
sure. I mean, this show's so hard to read.
It is, and we're only, like I said, we only got 2 episodes. But I saw that, and I was like, that might be something that can be triggered to that. She was on a mission of some sort, maybe. Maybe she was working for, we saw the symbol a lot, which was Sword. Sword is another company, or is another division association with Shield and Hammer.
It stands for at least so there's two versions of Sword. One is World, and then the MCU version, which is what we're in. It's Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division.
Which is kind of important there. Like that, I believe that one because it kind of segues to the Hydra and the Stark technology and the multiverse.
Right. I don't know. I will say here's one thing that I disagree with your theory.
Okay.
So your theory is that she's looking for intel.
At least in the beginning, like maybe they were forcing her or using her, maybe Shield, Sword, or somebody was utilizing her to.
See, I got this impression, and I'll go more into it in once we start talking about episode 2, that this wasn't necessarily her like on a mission or something. This is her escaping from reality, and Sword is trying to infiltrate her reality. And I'll go into a theory why I think that once we get to episode 2.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one too. That's another possibility. So he's trying to figure out. He doesn't know what they do, and then they have before that they saw the 23rd, and they had the heart symbol on there for them to remember. Hey, this is they trigger the moment, and they go, why would we write that? Both of us are really, really, really intelligent. Both of us would know this. So you kind of get that maybe there is that manipulation into her reality.
See, I was going to ask you about the 23rd because I know you mentioned it in like your comments, like when you text me.
I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything about that. Only thing I could possibly think of is that the 23rd is the day she created the reality.
That's a possibility.
I mean, that's the only thing I could potentially.
What was the month of the calendar?
I don't know that it showed the month. I could be completely wrong. I honestly can't remember.
So, well, let's move forward. So they have that. Oh, the boss is coming over for dinner.
Sorry. It's August 23rd. I wrote it in my
August
notes.
23rd. Okay. The boss is coming over for dinner, and I think it's my anniversary. Oh, you have they had these like they definitely made a homage and nods to the old shows from the like I Love Lucy and all that. And he comes over, and then they start freaking out because she doesn't have a meal, and she was trying to do something risque. And we got to meet the neighbor.
Yeah, Agnes. Played by Catherine Hahn. I think she's a fantastic actress. I have I think a pretty concrete theory on who Agnes is.
I think she's an agent for Sword.
I think you're wrong.
You think she's an agent for Hydra?
I don't think she's an agent at all. I have a whole theory going on. Do you know the name?
No, you know who she is?
Agatha
She's
Harkness.
the witch that. Yes, she's the witch.
Yes,
oh my god,
is.
it just clicked in my head. She's the witch that trained her.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So,
okay, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay,
we'll get to that in a second.
I have so much to like. I think is concrete as to why she's Agatha Harkness.
Yes. Oh my god, I can't believe it just clicked in my head too. I'm so ashamed of myself right now. So we get to meet Agnes, who is her neighbor, who just like walks in the door, and it's another one of those I Love Lucy, Bewitched, kind of moments. And so she's trying to set her up. They're reading a book about how to, keep your man or lose your man.
It's another Easter egg, I think. The magazine Glamour, which is some spell that I guess
a glamour spell.
Yeah, that Wanda knows, or something. I don't know, something like that. That's just a little Easter egg or something.
And then they come in, and they're going back to the boss comes over, and she's doing all of these things, trying to make the meal. She's trying to use magic. It's not working out well for her. He's trying to entertain them. It's just it's that little tongue-in-cheek jokes from the 1950s and stuff like that. And so just as he's about to get fired, she brings out the meal, and we're getting towards the end of the episode, and this is when it starts to get dark. This is when it starts to get serious. Like he starts choking.
Yeah, he starts choking because he's they start questioning Vision and Wanda of, hey, where did you come from? How long have you been married? And this starts to make Wanda question, wait, how long? Where did we come? What's going on here? and then she started to panic, or she started to freak out. She got annoyed with the questioning, whether it was subconsciously, because a lot of Wanda's powers are subconscious. She doesn't have full control. So I think subconsciously she tries to kill Mr. Hart.
So this is what confuses me and confused me in that scene is like when I first thought about it, I thought that it was all in Wanda's head, but it must be like that's a real person that she's manipulating or like controlling.
Whether she's so here's like a come to that it's whether she's controlling it or they're manipulating her, because that's where I was starting to wonder what was going on, because it seems like maybe they were trying to manipulate her, but they got caught in her reality, and every once in a while they kind of slip out, because the way she the Kitty from the 70s show lady is she goes, stop it, stop, kept telling her to stop it, stop it, stop it. And the way the questions were coming off and his aggressivity in asking the questions, it almost seemed like maybe he was at maybe one time trying to interrogate her, which kind of went with maybe she was sent on a mission and kind of got captured. And they're like, in my mind, Stark Industries and SWORD sent her on a mission, or at least coax her into helping out doing something. And maybe it was Hydra trying to make a comeback, because we have seen them a few times, and they caught her and were using some type of technology to manipulate her. And this was an interrogation, and her mind is trying to, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but like trying to sculpt it into where it's not such a threat, and it doesn't like give her a complete mental breakdown. So her mind is warping things because she doesn't have full control of her mind. She doesn't have full control of her powers.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad theory. My take of it is that, okay, I think I can confidently say there are real people in it. I think Agnes is a real person, and then there's a character in episode 2 we'll get to that I think is a real person. And then I think the beekeeper is a real person. Oh, that's episode 2. We'll get into that.
Do you think the 7? Have you did any research and found out about the 7?
The 7? No, I'm not familiar with that. But I got the impression that everybody else was this creation of Wanda's. She's creating these ideal versions of like Dottie in episode 2. Like, she's the stereotypical, like, I
think Dottie's real. Dottie is real.
Dottie's real too.
Dottie's real. Well, okay, we'll get into episode in a second. Let's finish up episode 1. Okay. So she immediately looks over, and Wanda looks over and says, tells her, she goes, Vision, save him.
Right.
She goes super serious.
In that moment, she breaks this facade, this character. She stops pretending to be this perfect housewife, and she breaks character and looks right at Vision. And what I mean, like a nice little touch about that, during the whole time, like, they're using like these old time, effects to like make the plate fly. It's all strings, mimicking these old shows. And then you can tell also, okay, she's breaking character. She's dropping this facade, and now Vision's using real powers. And they demonstrate that with actual current day CG, or effects and CGI and stuff like that, which was a nice little touch to like. They did well differentiating her perception of reality versus true reality.
Yeah, and he saves her, and is like, "Oh my God, you saved me!" Blah blah blah. And then they're like, "Oh, good." He's like, "Oh, well, we'll see you at work." Well, go ahead.
He didn't even react. Like, it's he didn't. He didn't. She just wiped. Like, did not allow them to remember that. They just, things weren't going well. She started to panic. She got things back into control, and then none of that. It's almost as if none of that happened. And then the entire experience where Mr. Hart was having a terrible time. Suddenly he's like, "Oh, Vision, you're great. You're gonna get the promotion or whatever like that."
What if it wasn't she wiped their mind, but they got the information that they needed, and they had to keep the facade going to keep her mentally stable and not to. That's where another of the agents.
Another thought. Just a real quick touch on that. There's an old what is it? Twilight episode where a little kid is controlling this reality, and all the adults are, placating whatever he wants in order to stay alive. It's this really old, Twilight episode.
When did those come out?
Oh, I'm like the 60s, 70s, 80s, something like that.
And no, it's not the 80s.
It was, whatever it was.
50s, 60s, which would be right around this time frame
yeah.
too.
It could be something like that. So I'm not sure if these people are real, most of them, or maybe they are, and it is taking from this Twilight episode where it's similar to this little kid who has full control of who exists and who doesn't.
Yeah. So before we start into episode 2, because I know we're about to segue into that, we forgot a crucial moment. The commercial. How did we forget about the commercial?
Toaster.
Yes. So just to give you right there, the toaster itself is an actual so Vision and Wanda at one time had kids.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I can't recall exactly how it happened, but they died.
I know how. How the kids died?
They died.
Well,
yes.
They didn't actually die.
They reverted to their original form or something.
So the kids were only created because Agatha Harkness, this is my understanding. So anybody who has a deeper understanding of the comics, I apologize if I'm butchering anything. This is my understanding. Agatha Harkness is the one who wants Wanda to have the twins, which I will go into about Agnes, a.k.a. Agatha Harkness, who we pretty sure is. She gives Wanda and Vision the power to essentially create, because Wanda can create whatever, to create these children. Eventually, I can't remember. I'm remembering it wrong. She does give them the power to have the kids. The kids die somehow, and then Agatha wipes her memory.
But she calls, after the death of him, she was really depressed, and she looks at Vision and calls him just a walking toaster.
Yeah, I think a couple times in the comics she does refer to Vision as a pet name as Toaster, and of course throughout other different shows, Toaster is a very common name for cyborgs or robots.
Yeah. So, but the interesting thing about it is, obviously, we could see Stark on the toaster, Stark Technology. They talked about it. They do using the old, very sexist 1950s commercials where it's this is, if your husband doesn't like burnt toast, this is a woman's best friend. And the only thing was the red light, and it was beeping, and it was beeping at a certain tone. It was kept going at a certain thing. It was just that beep, 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 and it never stopped. It never indicated anything to do with toast. So that's, again, going back to where I think she's being held captive in some type of machine by Hydra. And that's that something of the machine that's triggering, when you hear your alarm in your sleep and it gets implemented into your dream. Again, that was my whole idea of it, but I was making sure to take note of those little things.
And not that it is of any importance, but the toaster did have a likeness of Vision.
It totally looks just like Vision. Yeah.
The red light being the stone.
Yep. So, all right. And then it ended, and it actually had fake credits, which were cool.
Yes.
And the director is an actual Marvel character too.
Are you talking about Abe Brown?
I am.
Black Tiger, yeah.
Who
was also featured in Spider-Man Homecoming.
He was on the school board? Or
something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I didn't even look at all the credits and everything because I caught that one, and I didn't have a chance to go around and look again. That was one I caught off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's the only one I noticed. Or when I was looking up stuff like that. Because they did have the fake credits, which has a very nice, image, playing in the background, which is, CETV pixels, the red, green, and blue, which, if you don't know how TVs are, display images, that whatever. Every pixel is made up of 3 colors, red, green, or blue. That's how, whatever. You don't have to go into that. But I thought it was a nice little touch.
I thought it was gnomes. I legitimately thought there was gnomes in my TV.
Hey, and that's our episode.
Very small. So then we get into episode 2, and they have a Bewitched style intro and they call it WandaVision. And there is so many Easter eggs. There's so much going on. I just slammed to the max in there. I think there was so many hints for how the series is going to go were in it too. Especially just the stones in the beginning, the stars. Mm-hmm. There were 7 of them.
Okay.
So
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, there was 3 at the top. There was 3 under, and then there was the big one in the middle. I wonder if that has some memory, because how many were in the Infinity Gauntlet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There was 6. 6. Yeah, there were 6. So maybe the Infinity Stones, but I'm pretty sure there was 7 stars total. So maybe not. But I do think that has some significance. You saw stuff as they're going along. They had this old 1950s style, Bewitched style commercial. Grim Reaper's helmet was actually in their like floorboards and everything. There was bones when it was coming down. Grim Reaper is a villain that was like, he's not even a villain. He's an annoyance that they come across every once in a while. And so they fought him, and it looks like he's dead. And so whether or not he makes an appearance in this, maybe. The bovine milk and the House of M wine for the show, or the episode 1, were in there too, and those were also little Easter eggs. We'll come back to Easter eggs. We'll just do the theories of these. There's so much stuff
at the end. They put so much in it.
They put so much. So now we're into episode 2, and the first thing you hear this thunking sound. And now they're in beds. They're in their separated beds. The thunking sound, they obviously thought it was a tree branch. We know for a fact it wasn't a tree branch. We could hear the sound. We knew something was going on. Then she brings the bed together and puts one sheet over them. We know they're consummating the relationship.
Both go under the cover.
Those sheets over the heads and everything. But they are now officially, in her mind, married. And so then we start going into this episode. And so they're getting ready for a magical talent show with the names Illusion and Glamour, who are actual superheroes too. So they were their neighbors in this town when they originally were living in. Illusion and Glamour. I can't remember their powers. I'm assuming it had something to do with illusion and something to do with glamour. They had those abilities, so they kind of gave that homage to them doing their thing. And actually, Illusion and Glamour did a lot of magic, and everybody thought it was fake, but it was actually real magic. They had real abilities. So it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek to them, I think, a little bit too. So they're faking this for the children, because you have to think of the children.
For the children. And for the children is a common theme throughout the episode. It is the least subtle, subliminal messaging ever. For the children. For the children. I think they say it. I mean, it has to be at least 20 times, right? Like throughout the episode.
For the greater good. The greater good.
I guess out of curiosity, before we go too much into detail of this episode.
Yeah.
Episode 1, thoughts between episode 1 and 2, like, did it change much for you? Were you more into it after, watching episode 2? Because Lily made like a good point of the reason they probably released episode 1 and 2 at the same time. Episode 1 is more definitely for the fans.
I don't think you would have. Yeah, I don't think it would have been quality. I don't think it would have had the impact or effect if they didn't release both episodes. I was curious about that because I can't remember if it was season 1. It was season 1 of The Mandalorian where they did the first 2 episodes, I believe. Maybe it was season 2. I can't remember. But I don't think the show would have had the impact. I don't think it would have had the quality if they just did it that way, because they needed to.
Yeah, if it was just episode 1, I would not have gone back to it.
Yeah, it picked up a lot, and there was like a lot more that made you like that you didn't have to know all of these things to understand. Like there were Easter eggs still, but it just made more sense, and it was like a lot creepier, I think, the episode, especially like the For the Children, and like Dottie gave me pretty creepy vibes. So it like started to pick up, and it became a lot more interesting.
We could be totally wrong. Dottie could be Agnes.
No way. I'll go into. I didn't want to go too much into it until we get into episode 2 because there's very, very. I wouldn't call it hard proof, but next to hard proof.
What if Dottie's not Agnes? What if she is? Oh my god! I'm trying to think of the name of the supervillain. She's a witch as well, and she gave Dr. Doom his powers.
I have a theory that Dottie is nothing, and I when we get to the part in the episode, I think Dottie is nothing. I wouldn't put too much. I don't know. I could be completely way off, but I wouldn't put too much stake into who Dottie is.
I'm putting stake into who Dottie is.
No.
Who are you putting in it? Who Dottie is?
I don't know, but when she said like, "Who are you?" That was like. That made it seem like she was a real person who was really like, who are you and what are you doing here? And I don't think that Wanda would like create a person who would question her. Like that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Morgan Le Fay was the name, by the way, that I was thinking of. She could be Morgan Le Fay because she likes to control things. She likes to manipulate. She has the capability of to perform illusions, and she is very, very powerful, and she's also associated with the Fantastic Four. She trained up Dr. Doom, and they are bringing in Dr. Doom and the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Universe. So is it possible?
I could
it
be
may be
way
completely
off.
wrong.
Yeah,
who knows? Could be totally like I've just pulled something crazy random and not even remotely close. But okay, so we're going back to the tangents. This is what we do, Lily. If you haven't noticed, we go on major tangents. We're doing the act. They're getting it ready, and he's like, "All right, I'm off to work." And then she's like, "Okay, well, I've got stuff to do around the house because I'm a wife, you know." And so she's doing stuff, and she hears something outside. She looks outside, and there on all the black and white is a red and yellow helicopter with the sword logo on it. I'm going to call it a pound sign because it's a pound sign. I don't care what your generation says. It is not a hashtag.
Okay,
it
boomer.
is a pound sign.
Move on.
So it has the hashtag /pound sign with the number 57. That is a straight up homage to, a nod to the fans for issue 57, where Vision comes into play. That was his introduction issue. So that's kind of neat. The sword logo is obviously has to do with sword. The helicopter, I think it either has to do something like she brought down a helicopter, she was in a helicopter crash. It is a significant subconscious moment because you obviously, if it's going to be in color when everything's in black and white, I don't know quite what it is, but it is something. You've got a theory. Let's hear it.
So we're gonna skip around into the episode a little bit. We're gonna jump forward to the part where, Agnes, Wanda, Dottie, Bev, shut up, Bev, are all at, this whatever the meeting is. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Now
the cult of housewives.
Yeah, it's the talent show committee.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, the talent show.
So there's a character named Geraldine. Now, hold on.
I know where you're going with this.
So
I know who that is.
Geraldine is played by Tanya Paris, I believe. Now, Kevin Feige revealed at something, I can't, it's like D23 or something like that. I can't remember what it is, that she's going to be playing a character called Monica Rambeau, what's Captain Marvel? Mm-hmm. Captain Marvel as a little girl.
That's her daughter. Yes.
Kevin Feige has confirmed this actress who's playing Geraldine is going to be playing a woman named Monica Rambeau,
but she doesn't remember her name.
A sword agent. So, and here's my theory. On her, she's wearing a pendant that is very, very identical to one of Doctor Strange's portals. Now, this could just be a reference because Wanda and Vision are going to be in the next Doctor Strange or whatever it is. It could simply just be that. But what I'm thinking is that Doctor Strange or something, somehow teleported Geraldine or Monica Rambeau into Wanda's plane of existence in the helicopter. And then, Wanda subconsciously not allowing that turn the helicopter into a toy. And then she heard that come crashing down. So I think Monica...
There's no way you came up with that by yourself. You're not that smart.
No, I'm telling you, this is from hours of research. Because I don't know who any of these people are. But following these stupid little rabbit holes that there are an endless amount in the Marvel Universe, I think Monica Rambeau is a sword agent, or Geraldine is a sword agent infiltrating Wanda's reality.
And she's super nice to Wanda, too. Like, she compliments her, like she's trying to get close to her. So maybe it's like...
But she doesn't remember who she is. I agree, she's nice. She doesn't remember.
If she's a sword agent, she's just pretending.
I don't think she's pretending because she stuttered there. I don't think she's pretending because I think Wanda's subconscious, her powers... Because you see, we saw it happen in the first episode. We saw it happen multiple times in the second episode, where people break character, if you will, and like for a very brief moment, they're freaking out and they're like, "Why am I here?" You know what it reminds me of? Remember, have you ever seen that movie Get Out? So when they flash like the camera, when they get flashlight in their faces, the people realize they come back to who they consciously really are. And they're basically it's like body snatchers on like a racist level, and they're like they remember who they are, and they're just like, oh my god, and I think that's kind of maybe could have happened.
Well, here's
I like your idea better about the helicopter though.
Right. But here's why
he teleported in there.
Here's why I think only a few people are real. Which goes with Dottie, my theory of Dottie, that Dottie's not real either. But where the woman who played Kitty, saying stop it, and then the part where Dottie says, "Who are you?" when the radio transmission goes on with a voice, which I know who it is because it turns out if you had the subtitles on, it says who it is, which is unfortunate. I mean, okay, big spoiler on top. If you want me to spoil it for you,
yeah, go ahead.
It's Agent Wu from Ant-Man.
Really?
Yeah. If you have the subtitles on, it literally says Agent Wu. Whatever, I can't remember what he says. Where are you, Wanda? Where are you?
Yeah, who did this to you?
Who did this to you? Yeah, that's what it is. But when that goes off, Wanda it's just like when, she's saying stop it at the dinner. That's bringing Wanda to reality. Like, it's bringing her out of this ideal, perfect society that she's created. So Dottie forgets who she is because that's actually Wanda being like, wait, who am I? Like, kind of like, wait, these little inconsistencies, like when Mr. Hart is pressing her, she breaks character. When the radio transmission goes off and breaks her perfect reality, the characters change. They go from, they snap out of this 50s, whatever, perfect society to confused.
I don't think Dottie's not a person. I think Dottie is maybe the program or system or the containment facility that she's in. Like DOTI stands for something like Dimensional Operating Transportation. I haven't come up with an I yet, but like that's pretty good start. Yeah, right there, right?
I mean, I don't think that's any more wrong than any theory anybody can have at this point.
No, but it could be that too. Like that is maybe the AI of that, or maybe she is an AI like Vision, and or it could be. So there are other AIs, there are other robotics. Jocasta, who is she's Ultron's daughter, if I remember, or like basically it's the best you can come to with a robot daughter. She's not a bad guy, but she's not a good guy. She actually ends up working for Hammer or Sword. She ends up working for them too. And the amount of like little things, man, I'm becoming you over here. So way going back to where we originally were starting on, because I can't believe how many tangents this show has made me go on.
See, these little things. So the show, this is also, there's a comment that Agnes makes before they take off to this meeting, where she calls Wanda the star of the show.
Yes, so, I caught that too. Yes. You're the star of the show.
Yes, so that makes me think, obviously, Agnes is a real person, and she's aware of what's going on here. I think Agnes, Wanda, and Geraldine are the only, I could be wrong, this is just my theory, that they're the only real people so far that we know for sure are real in this sub universe or whatever Wanda makes, because she calls her the start of the show. So that like instantly was like Truman Show to me. Like she knows, like Wanda's not in on it. It's her creation, but she's not in on it. But Agnes goes out of her way to make the comment, here's the star of the show. So that says to me she also knows that this is a fake world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely think Agnes knows, and she's playing the character on some level that we don't know.
Well, I have a theory as to why that too.
I'm sure you do. But so yes, she's meeting up. She gets her first introduction to Dottie and her little cult following that they're planning for this charity for the children.
Mm-hmm. For the children.
Yeah, for the children. And then while she's doing this, Vision goes off to do he's trying to see what's going on with the night watch and everything, or the neighborhood watch. And he starts asking all these questions. That also, it helped my theory of like there was some type of mission that she was on or something of that sort, because the questions he's asking are very like thorough intel questions. You would want to know about a place before you decide to try to go into it. What is the word? I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now. Like
colonize.
No.
Infiltrate.
There's the word. See, this is why we're having Lily on the show. She's going to think of the big words.
Yeah, Lily's the brains here, and we're the ones that are just going on mindless reign.
Yeah, like little twitches. So yes, before you infiltrate, you want to have all this info, and they just look at him like, and then they start laughing, and they're like, well, we were just about to talk about the big business. And what food was it that they were?
Big red gum. Which red?
No. That's before that. Before he ate the gum, it was a dessert kind of food, wasn't it, or breakfast food that they were eating? They asked if anybody wanted one, and he goes, "Oh no, I've already eaten, or I don't eat."
Uh-huh.
And they go, "What do you mean you don't eat?" He's like, "Oh, I don't eat in between meals." And he's like, "Oh, ha 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 ha." And then, then they eventually gave him big red gum. So go on your little...
So here's my theory for why it's Wanda, man. She doesn't want... So Vision is a robot, obviously. So he's got this intellectual brain. He wants to know why things work. So, that's part of him questioning, what do we do? What do we do for a living? What do we do at this job? But also like, hey, how do we do this? How are we stopping, protecting our, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm starting to come around on your theory about looking for intel, but I also think Wanda subconsciously had him eat the gum to put him in this drunken like state, because he's asking too many questions. He's breaking these walls. He's ruining her.
He doesn't exist.
Maybe, but okay.
There was no maybe. He's dead.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, I don't know fully what happened, but all these freaking nerds, man, have this theory that Vision's actually alive. And I didn't go down that rabbit hole because that was just a little too much for me. But
he can't be alive. He didn't die from the snap.
There's this theory that he's alive, that Wanda somehow, because I don't know the whole theory. I don't even know exactly what it is, but because she has connection to all these stones, that somehow she was able to bring Vision back alive. But regardless, Living
no, they
Vision,
they almost did get the stone from him.
Living Vision, or whether he's a figment of her imagination, she still has subconsciously, at least, full control of this. So I think subconsciously he was asking too many questions, so she got him essentially drunk, and he stopped asking questions. Like you see, after she pulls the gum out of him, he doesn't even bring it up anymore. Like he's just done with it. So I think that was her coping with somebody trying to break her reality, at least subconsciously.
And that's a possibility. And we also see so after this whole meeting, we see her back with Dottie and Agnes and everything, and they're talking about everything that's going down and how to set up all this stuff. And Dottie is just like destroying everybody because she's such a pleasant person. And that's when we get to meet, oh my God,
Bev,
Geraldine. Yep.
Yeah.
And so now you can go on your Geraldine tangent.
No.
Did you get that out of your
I said
system?
what I needed to say about Geraldine.
Then after that, we go from Geraldine, they should keep talking and everything. And so now Dottie's punishing Wanda. Then she breaks the radio does go off, and when they say, "Where are you, Wanda? Where are you, Wanda?" or "Who did this to you, Wanda?" and then she's freaking out, and you can see her. This is why I think Dottie is real, because she breaks systems. She comes out and she realizes, and she looks afraid, and I think she says, "Where are we?"
No, she says, "Who are you?" She
Or
looks
who
at
are you?
She looks at Wanda and
she goes, "Who are you?"
Who are you?
And before that, she was talking about how she doesn't like Wanda. Like, she literally said that because Wanda, like, said something, and then Dottie said, "I don't like you," or "I don't trust you," something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And she breaks the glass, and it shatters in her hand, and you see the red. You see the blood, which was the only red thing again, which is it's the significance of her color.
Yeah, I mean,
Scarlet Witch.
Like, red is... So I've heard a bunch of theories why red... I mean, obviously, Wanda's abilities are red. Vision's kind of red. There's a small part in it where they do another ad for a Stucker watch, which is... Stucker,
yes.
excuse me.
Yes.
Stucker,
no, but it's okay.
Stucker is a villain that gave Wanda her powers, which is confusing to me because I guess I don't...
In the MCU, yes, he was one of the people that genetically... So at the end of... I can't remember which movie it was, but they were basically doing this. They were trying to do a Captain America thing, and they were genetically engineering things, and they're like, well, Stucker was the guy that was in head charge, and this was Hydra stuff. And also, if you notice, it was the same. I believe it was the same actor and actress who did the first commercial too. So I wonder if they're going to have significance. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I thought that was Stucker or whatever his name is. I thought that was the Hydra guy, but maybe not.
No,
okay.
The watch is like, how the toaster said Stark.
And the watch had a Hydra symbol on it.
Yep.
So, but I have a theory why red is so significant, but red is a very... Well, we'll save that. This theory all aligns with Agnes and the Beekeeper and the color red and the twins. We'll go into that. I think I'll save it for the last thing.
So then, we see the red, we see the blood, and then all of a sudden she snaps back into play and is going back into the 1950s. Women take care of themselves and are independent and have to take care of everybody. And so then we get eventually we get to the magic show, and Vision is all gunked up, and we get that 1950s comic, like cartoon style, where it's good, clogging up his gears. And so he's drunk, which is kind of weird, but I was like, all right, let's flow with it. Instead of being all glitchy and weird and all that stuff, he's drunk, and then they have to fake the actual things that he was doing, and everybody seemed to be really cool with it, which is kind of interesting because he was doing the cards stupid fast, and nobody seemed to even blink at that. They're like, oh yeah, it's totally normal. He can move his hands that fast. We kind of wrap up the episode to an extent. They go back to the home. They're like, we want to fit in. And that was another key phrase. She's like, I want to fit in, which is definitely something she's always wanted, to be fit in, to be normal-ish as much as you can be normal, and just have her life with him. And then we hear the sound again, the dong, and they go out there to check the tree, and they see somebody coming out, and she breaks character. She goes, Vision, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know. And we see the Beekeeper come out, and she immediately goes, no. And which is like, whoo, all right, what happened here? And then they go back to rewind the episode back to where they're just talking and kissing. And all of a sudden she's pregnant. We've already discussed this. We've already said this. She's going to have twins. And you kind of saw that in some of the trailers and stuff, but I kind of knew that beforehand. All of a sudden things start going into color.
Which is a nice... There's overall through episode 1 and 2, you see subtle progression. So as I take that as like, oh, Wanda's like slowly filling in what she wants, blah, blah, blah. Everything's progressing. So in the first episode, it's very sitcom style where it's your standard 3-camera setup. So you have, point A, B, and C, those are your shots. After that, the camera starts moving around. It starts following her. You get close-ups, you get more complicated, quote unquote, shots. So that's progressing. The scenery, at first the name of the town is Westview or something like that, which is, I think, a nod at, she grew up in Sokovia. So, like, this is her ideal of how she views the West, quote unquote.
I thought it had something to do with Westview is a town in New Jersey.
Oh, I have no idea, maybe.
Which is kind of a homage to the town where they really wanted to live in, or in the comics, they live in a town in New Jersey. And since New Jersey is not that far from New York, whereas everything's happened, it would make sense too, because that's with reality within flying distance for her. It's just super over there.
You see a top-down shot of the cul-de-sac where it's very empty. Then as the episode 2, you see like more people. You see the cul-de-sac filling. You see the set inside their house starts filling. And then you see this big move of progression, color, which was, it's significant of her, I feel like her coming more into this world that she's building herself.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to get into the Brady Bunch time frame too. So I think we're going to see some stuff there. I'm excited. I like it. I like all the conspiracy theories that it's making us have. I like all the Easter eggs. I like that it is different. It is not your typical superhero story. It's not your stereotypical superhero cinematography that you see. Like, I'll get you next time, Batman, or it breaks up the monotony that is the superhero world and storylines, and it gives us more of a look. Honestly, I feel it's more relatable to a comic than it is the actual shows or the movies, because they have more time to use stuff. They get to think outside the box, and they break the mold in ways that we haven't seen, and I find that absolutely fascinating.
It's episode 1 was rough for me. Episode 2 was still rough, but it's getting better. And like I said in the beginning of the episode, I have very high hopes for this for the show.
Yeah. So now that we've discussed this information, you have done your research and your work.
Are you ready for me to drop the biggest bomb?
Go for it.
Okay. This involves Agnes. This involves the babies. And this involves... I'm not so sold on the beekeeper portion of this theory, of this rabbit hole, almost literally, that I went down of, ideas and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so Agnes, a.k.a. Agatha Harkness. Theories are reasons why she's so clearly Agatha Harkness. In the trailer, there was a subtle little, it's very quick, but a very subtle, Wizard of Oz tribute to the Wicked Witch of the West or East or whatever it is. The shot where she's riding her bike before the tornado hits. Clearly meant to be the witch, which Agatha is a witch. Agatha was a witch who was alive during the Salem trials, like the Salem witch trials, which there's a subtle nod to that. You guys remember the name Ralph, her husband, who's never seen. She, in the first episode, she says, the only way Ralph would remember our anniversary if there was a beer named June 2nd. June 2nd being a very significant date in relation to the Salem witch trials. This is the day it started. So June 2nd, 1692 was the beginning of the Salem witch trials. Subtle reference there. In the comics, what I've gathered, Agatha pushes Wanda to have these babies. She pushes and pushes. In the show, it does the same thing. In the beginning of the episode, when Vision's holding the newspaper, there's a picture of a kid, and it's like essentially saying like, "Oh, life is so great with kids." Then it jumps to Agnes talking about seduction techniques. She's very forcefully pushing onto it. Let me see. I have a lot of notes here. In the second episode, she brings up when she, walks over to the house, she is like talking about certain things, and she mentions school admissions, and then Wanda, playfully says, "Oh, I don't know if we're ready for that or whatever." And then of course for the children in the entire episode. So she's clearly pushing for these kids. Like both episodes. I was going to say the entire series, but both episodes she's pushing for these kids. So here's why. Do you know the name Mephisto?
Yes.
Okay. So he's the devil, essentially, in the Marvel Universe. There is, in the comics, Wanda's children were the, like, souls or something like that of Mephisto. So essentially like the Horcruxes of like how in Harry Potter, whatever it is, like how Voldemort has Horcruxes. Essentially, that's what Wanda's children are to Mephisto. Now, Ralph, I think, is Mephisto. You never see him. I think the red is constantly referring to Mephisto, this looming problem that nobody really sees, this bigger problem.
Also, Vision said that Ralph is a communist, and that's like a red nod as well.
Yeah. So either, red, that's a red reference. I don't know if that like would be Hydra or something like that, but
No,
Ralph,
Hydra's green.
Oh,
yeah.
Hydra's green. Oh, that's just my assumption because there's like the Red Skull guy or something like that. But anyways, communism, another reference to red. Well, Wanda, before the magic show, she asks Agatha or Agnes for a rabbit. Do you remember the name of the rabbit?
It started with an H.
Nope. Senor Scratch.
Oh, was it? It was.
Scratch is a pseudonym for devil. Yeah, that I did not know either. It is. It's a pseudonym for devil. And Mephisto, i.e. the devil. So my question is, since Agatha is the one, like, she clearly knows with the, here's the start of the show. She knows this is not reality. She knows this is Wanda's whatever world. So, well, this is what I don't know. I don't know enough about Agatha's alliance. Is she trying to prevent Mephisto by having Wanda give birth and essentially tearing apart his soul or whatever, preventing him from coming? Or is she trying to get his soul and make, Mephisto whole again? And this is the part of the theory that I don't know that I'm fully behind, that the beekeeper is Mephisto.
No, it's not.
See,
he had a sword. He had a sword on the back.
But Mephisto, the only reason I'm entertaining it a little bit, Mephisto is the Lord of Flies. I understand they're bees, but not too far off. This man emerges cut like flying out of bees. The sewer is essentially supposed to be symbolizing hell. That I don't feel so confident about that one, but I thought it was worth bringing up. But yes, I did.
How would you bring in flies?
Well,
I guess I can see bees,
right.
But like, how would you bring a beekeeper?
The thing is that he did have the sword logo on his back, so I don't know enough about superheroes, or if there is something that this is clearly pointing to as like who
there
this
isn't.
person is. Okay,
no,
okay.
There's no beekeeper superhero. Maybe more symbolism of, she's the queen bee and he is, here to keep her. He's the keeper and she is here, because the queen bee is to make babies and to keep the drones in line, which could be utilized as that symbolism that she's here to keep these people that don't really know why they're here, incapacitated or something of that sort. There's a whole bunch of like conspiracy theories we can do here on this one,
but I think Agnes is there.
I like that.
So I think Ralph is Mephisto. I think Agnes. I don't know enough about Agnes's alignment and stuff like that, but I think
he might be the BBEG of this, and that would make more sense with more getting the multiverse and bringing in Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange has already had to deal with Dormammu, who is basically another devil, if you would. There's a lot of devils. There's literally the devil and Damien Hellstrom and all them for, there's a lot of demons and devils in the Marvel DC universes. Not all of them ethereal, some of them intergalactic. extraterrestrial. So I like that theory. I think they also play a lot on the red because it's Wanda's color, Scarlet Witch.
And Vision.
Yeah,
and, you know,
but
all that stuff.
So much stuff, so much going on here, so much to actually just discuss. And honestly, I think we could literally go on for another couple hours.
Right. I feel like this is going to be another long one.
So well, let's do this then. Let's wrap this up here, and let's go based on after this conversation, based on this information and this discussion. How are you feeling about the show? How are you looking at the episodes? If you were to go back now and look at them again, do you think you would have looked at them through a different light and you might appreciate them more, or you might dislike them more, or you're still in the same position that you were before we started the podcast?
Yeah, without a doubt. I
want to go back and watch them again.
I don't know that I'd go back and watch them again because I've spent too much stupid time on this stupid show.
I think you've earned it. It's only an hour.
I don't think there's anything new I can gain from watching it again. I will say Wanda and Vision's comic history annoys the hell out of me. I hate all the times they've had to rewrite it and stuff like that. There's too much. It's very confusing. It's, I don't know, in my opinion, unnecessary. That being said, I appreciate the episodes so much more. I like them a lot more. I like this series as a whole a lot more, and I'll probably continue watching it just to see how it goes. I don't know that I'll do any more deep dives unless we do a wrap up of the episode, and then I'll do something. But
I think we'll have to do a season wrap up.
I will say, coming into this knowing, if you know a lot, the show is fantastic. I mean, truly props to the people who wrote it because of the sheer amount of Easter eggs, how well they've kept it, I mean, never in my life would I thought I'd ever go on conspiracy rants about WandaVision, which until a couple days ago, I didn't even know who Wanda and Vision were, let alone. Overall, yes, I think it's a good show. I like how much it progressed between episode 1 and 2.
Lils.
Yeah, I like it more now, but there's still something that makes me roll my eyes that you would have to know all these things to enjoy the show. So I'm going to keep watching it. I think it's going to get better. But I wonder if for someone who doesn't know as much, if it would be better to just wait until the whole season is out to watch it. Because I think the first episode and the second episode, the first episode is hard to get through if you don't know what's going on, and then the second episode gets better. So I wonder if for people like me it would just be better to wait till all the episodes are out, because then I think it would be more interesting.
Would you feel, let me ask you this, because Joe, you did a lot of research and I know you did it for the episode, but if you were watching the show, you were just watching WandaVision and you saw these little things and you wanted to find out, do you think this could have been a good segue getting somebody to go in and delve a little bit deeper and maybe actually invest some time into looking into the comics or other stuff, or maybe even becoming more of a fan?
I think if you're coming from where I originally was, I don't like superhero movies very well. I could go on to a rant, and I know people won't like it, but I genuinely do not think the Avengers series are good movies. That is a very unpopular opinion. I understand why people do like them.
No, I get it.
I have my own particular reasons about that. If it wasn't for this episode, I would have stopped. I would have stopped at episode 1. I think for somebody coming with next to zero knowledge, episode 1 is chock full of the information. If you actually know what you're looking for, it is full of information. Being someone who didn't know that information, no, I absolutely would not have continued the series. That being said, if you have even, a medium amount of knowledge, if you've watched, the series and MCU and you like it and you genuinely enjoy, yeah, I think this is a great way for somebody to go from, a moderate fan, a casual, something like that, into, going into deep dives. There are thousands of videos already. This came out yesterday. There's so many videos where people have all these theories of what's going on in the show. I think that's great if you are looking to get a better understanding and you don't necessarily want to go and read all these comics. Like, I mean, that's, I imagine, an impossible task to go back and read every single comic of all, you know, not just Wanda and Vision, you know, so on. I think these kind of shows are a great introduction for people who have at least a modicum of like information of what's going on.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. I don't think personally you've given me a lot more theories to kind of go off of. I like that's the Agnes theory. That's nice. That's lovely. I like that.
I lost a lot of sleep for this
I believe that. Good on you, buddy. Good on you. I'm proud of you. Yeah, I think personally, from my opinion, I enjoyed it, and as you know, somebody with a little bit more knowledge, it was definitely more fun. I definitely feel like it was at least the first episode was for the fans by the fans, and I'm curious and excited to see where they're going to go. And I think we wouldn't be doing the show justice if we didn't at least do one more night where you don't get sleep. And
we'll see. I'll base it off of episode 3. We'll see how that goes.
No. Well, we'll do the season wrap up, because I feel like I don't want to do too much because there's so many other things that are coming out that we could focus on. Just DC, Marvel, and Disney wise, we're gonna have a cram-packed schedule anyways. Especially because hopefully this COVID thing dies down and things start getting a little bit better, where I can be a little more social, because I plan on doing the Ren Fair. We've got those guys coming on to talk to them. Actually plan on trying to do a trip up to Salem and talk to them up there in October time frame. Then we have the Women's Appreciation. So we have a very, very packed schedule as it is. So
this will be a busy, I mean, we weren't joking in the last episode when it will be a busy 2021.
Everything that's coming out, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Willow, not to mention comics, cartoons, books, everything. It's crazy. So on that note, let's go ahead and let's wrap this up.
Sure. I'd like to take a second and I apologize to the viewers, to Lily, to you maybe, for taking up all your time ranting about a show that I know almost nothing on. Yeah, sorry.
Lily, I know you just kind of sat there and you did give some tidbits every once in a while. Thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate your presence.
Thanks for having me. Next time we won't invite Joe. Then I can get some words in.
Yeah, apparently this wasn't the episode where you'd be like, hey, can I talk about some stuff that I know about? Let me bring my tinfoil hat wearing boyfriend.
Next episode where Lily talks about superheroes and Harry Potter and I don't know, whatever. What do you want to talk about?
The impact of feminism in WandaVision.
Okay, all right, and that's all the time we have.
So yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up. As always, please like, subscribe, follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you are listening to us on Audible or Apple, please remember to rate and review. We are also on Instagram and Facebook, so please like and follow us at DNA Pod, and on Twitter at Nerd DNA Pod. Twitch, we're on there occasionally. You can follow us at Nerd DNA Podcast. And as always, I'm Steve.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm Lily.
And this is Dads with Nerdy Ambitions. Thank you and have a wonderful night.
Bye-bye.
See ya.